Folks, if you've been following the Calgary Flames for a while, you've noticed a few things. One of them is that the Flames have a lot of new players in their organization as a result of Craig Conroy trading away many players on expiring deals. Part of these deals were the Flames getting a whole bunch of both young prospects and draft selections that they used to draft prospects. And as a consequence, there's a ton of young talent in the Flames system. Now, there's a debate to be had as to whether or not the Flames have a lot of high-end talent, and we'll get into that later on in a future video. But for the time being, as we get through the Four Nations face-off break and head towards the home stretch of the season, not only for the NHL, but for the various feeder leagues, college, junior, and what have you around the world, let's get into which Flames prospects you should go out of your way to see between now and the end of the season, and which of them maybe could find their way onto the Flames before too long. So I did my best to keep this list to a manageable number, and as you can tell by the title of this video, I settled on 6. That was tough. I had to make some tough decisions, and during those cuts, there's 4 players that didn't quite make the core 6 that I really wanted to single out. And so the players on this list in general that I really tried to emphasize, players that are exciting to watch, players that are on good teams, that are having good years, or players that are just otherwise notable for particular reasons. So I settled on the core 6, but these 4 players in particular, I didn't want to go without mentioning. And those 4 are Hunter Brzustewicz, Sam Honzek, Trevor Hoskin, and Henry Muse. Hunter Brzustewicz, the Flames got in the trade with Vancouver for Elias Lindholm. He had 92 points in the OHL last year as a 19-year-old. This year as a 20-year-old, he went pro and joined the Wranglers. And his offensive numbers aren't amazing. He has 18 points in 47 games as of this recording. But he's just been really solid, and he's playing big minutes as a 20-year-old in the second best league in the world. And it's a tough league to learn. It tends to take 20-year-olds a long time to figure out what you can get away with in the pros and what you can't. And Brzustewicz has really figured it out quickly. And his offense will probably come along. He's getting better offensively as this season has gone along, but it's just really impressive that he's been able to transition so quickly and so well. Same for Sam Honzek. Honzek was the Flames' first-round pick a couple years ago. He's had a lot of injuries the last 2 seasons. Even in his draft year, he had a tough injury off a skate cut that cost him some time. But Honzek, he's versatile. He can play the wing, and he's played a little bit of center for the Wranglers this year. And he's managed to stay healthy this season for the most part. He played NHL games. At this point, he's played 37 AHL games in his 18 points. He's become a big top 6 fixture for the Wranglers as a 20-year-old, and he's really figured out how to be effective. Similar to Brzustewicz, I think he's really focusing on his two-way play more than other parts of his game, and the rest of it will come along. But he's a guy that you constantly notice at Wranglers games, and for someone that the Flames have high hopes for, that's a pretty good thought. Next up, a pick from this year's draft, Trevor Hoskin from the Niagara University Purple Eagles, the greatest sports team name I can think of. He's 20. He's a right shot forward. He's in his first season in college hockey. He's 20. Typically, true freshmen are going into college at 18. So he played a couple years in the OJHL before transitioning to college. So he's a little bit older than a lot of the other first-year players, and he's playing in a weaker conference, but he's killing it offensively. He has 36 points in 31 games. He's the top scoring freshman in the entire United States college system in all of Division I. He's really good, and maybe he'll transition to another college next year. Typically, if you're a star at a lower college conference, you get transfer options. But it's hard not to be enthusiastic about Hoskins' first season because he's managed to score and made Niagara a tough team to play against as a 20-year-old. In sometimes college hockey can be hard to move into, but he's done a great job. And last but not least, originally from the Ottawa 67s, but now playing for the Sudbury Wolves, right shot D, Henry Muse, 70 points in 53 games. He's just a beast offensively. The only player who scored more points by a defense in the OHL this year is fellow Flames prospect Zayne Parekh. We'll get to him later. But Muse, it's hard to really knock his game at all. He's been really, really good. The 67s weren't amazing this year. Neither is Sudbury. Sudbury's kind of hit the ditch since the OHL trade deadline, but Muse has consistently been producing and been a shining light in their games. The rumor that won't go away is him potentially going to the NCAA next season. He's 18 this year. Next year he's 19. You can't play in the AHL until you're 20. And so with the strange new world of college accepting CHL players now, we'll see what happens. But there's enough smoke there with Muse and college that I'm inclined to think that there's something there. But we'll see. It's still rumor and conjecture at this point. But at the very least, he's an exciting player, and you can kind of understand why college systems or college programs would be excited about having him play for their team, even if it's for a year or two. All right, let's get into the 6 players you got to see. These are in alphabetical order. Let's start out in the OHL with the Kingston Frontenac's winger, Jacob Battaglia. He's 18. He's turning 19 sometime this spring. Left shot winger. 53 games, 73 points. He's big, he's smart, he's balanced. He can play either wing, primarily left side, but he's been able to sort of go on either side for Kingston this year. He's versatile because of that. He can score goals, he can kill penalties, he can move up and down your lineup. He's basically been playing in every which way in the top 9 for Kingston this year, and he's been really, really good. He wears 88. He has a distinctive number, but he's also a big-time player. He's one of those guys that they can count on for goals at key moments, and as a result, he's become one of the more exciting players, one of the more consistent players in the entire OHL. So Battaglia, the Flames got him with one of the draft picks they got in the Chris Tanev trade. I believe right now the trade is basically Tanev for Artem Grushnikov and Jacob Battaglia. Grushnikov has already proven himself to be a capable pro. It's hard to really knock Battaglia. He's got size, he's got versatility, he's got smarts, and he's a player that has really shown some adaptability this year. And so, he, again, much like a lot of these guys we're going to talk about, he might be a year or two away from playing pro hockey, but he's one of those guys that you look at and go, okay, this is a player that could be really exciting as he transitions to pro, because the things he's good at aren't things that you need to be big at to be successful at being. So, Jacob Battaglia, definitely worth checking out. The CHL has a streaming service. You can watch any games. OHL games, especially if you're a Flames fan, are worth checking out. But especially Kingston games, because Battaglia is usually worth the price of the subscription on its own. Next up, we're staying in the OHL. If you've been following the 2025 NHL draft much, you've probably heard the name Misa quite a bit. Michael Misa plays for the Saginaw Spirit of the OHL, and he's one of the best players in junior hockey right now. He's an offensive juggernaut. He famously got exceptional status and started in junior hockey as a 15-year-old. Michael Misa has an older brother, Luke Misa, who's a Flames draft pick. He was selected by the Flames in the 5th round of last year's draft, and Luke Misa isn't as good offensively as his brother. It's, not to be mean, it's just a statement of fact, and I think he'd probably admit that. But he's really, really good. He plays for the Brampton Steelheads, formerly the Mississauga Steelheads of the O. He's 19, just turned 19 in November. He's a left shot center who can always also play the wing. 70 points in 52 games. Here's the only knock on him. He ain't big. He's listed at 5'10" and 175, 180 pounds. And when you look at clips of him on the ice, he looks smaller than the other guys. It's just a statement of fact. He's a smaller forward. And if you're looking at a crystal ball, the big thing is, can a smaller forward be an effective center at the pro level? And the answer is, I don't know. Some guys can do it. And Misa, for any of his faults, he's not an amazing defensive player, but he's pretty decent at it. It's just not his calling card. He's a great offensive player. He's creative. He's fast. He can use his elusiveness to sort of find gaps in coverage and get open, and then use that talent to find passes for his teammates. He's been really effective for Brampton, and you never know. Maybe he can be a good small center. Time will tell. At the very least, he projects as a really, really fun to watch smaller winger, and his offensive instincts are through the roof. If he was a little bit bigger, he wouldn't have been a 5th rounder, because last year he had crazy offensive numbers for a draft eligible player in his first year of eligibility. This year, as I mentioned, he's actually ahead of last year's pace. And so he's shown progression, he's shown a lot of versatility, and the fact that he can play center gives you a different developmental path potentially than a lot of guys have. So if you're the Flames, you like the fact that he's a center. You wish he was a little bit bigger, but he's he's really good. And, similar to Battaglia, he's someone that when you're watching, Steelheads games, you see number 33 jump off the page. He's just a noticeable presence for the right reasons most of the time. And, just his offensive numbers, if he can port over a fraction of his offensive ability to the next level, at the worst case scenario, he'll be a pretty good to very good, like Matthew Phillips level offensive producer in the AHL. And there's value there. And maybe the rest of it comes along too. So I wouldn't put a ceiling on him. At the very least, you can kind of see some similarities to other players the Flames have had in their system, but he's really good. If you get a chance to watch Luke Misa, do it. Next up, and I swear the Flames have prospects in leagues that aren't the OHL, but next up, this year's first round pick, Zayne Parekh. Zayne Parekh, what can you say about him? He's got speed, he's got size, he's got skill, he's a right shot defenseman, he can skate well, he's smart, he can play either side. He's playing for the Saginaw Spirit. He's played on the left side, he's played on the right side. He's versatile, he's smart, he can run a power play. Right now you probably wouldn't want him to kill penalties because his talents lie elsewhere, but he's not a bad defensive player, and he's mentioned in interviews this year he's really tried to focus on the defensive side of his game. And so early this year, I think maybe his production was a little bit lower than anyone anticipated. It wasn't bad, it was just not like crazy high like he had last year. And so I think in the second half of the season, he's really managed to sort of meld together the defensive details he worked on early this season with the offensive talent that he has. And at this point, he's on pace to hit 100 points in the Ontario League as a defenseman. To my knowledge, no one has hit 100 points in the Ontario League as a defenseman since Ryan Ellis did it in 2011. So it doesn't happen often, and I think that shows you how rare his level of offensive ability is. He's just really good. And the nice thing is, he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder. He plays, I want to call him a Matthew Tkachuk style player, but Matthew Tkachuk had the unique ability to, he knew he was good, and he didn't mind sort of throwing a shoulder into you on the way by. He got a little bit of grit to him. And Parekh has that. Parekh's game has some swagger, and he's not afraid to engage physically. And I think that bodes well for him going into the pro level in a year or two. He's in his 18-year-old year. He'll be in his 19-year-old year next year. So for next season, it's either NHL or OHL based on the way the rules are written now. But Parekh, you can kind of see his game, especially the parts of his game, the physicality, the ability to battle and generate offense while battling through traffic. And you can kind of see why the Flames and a lot of the hockey world are so excited about him. Scott Wheeler at The Athletic named him. I think he was fourth on his list of the top 100 drafted NHL prospects recently. And you can see why, because Parekh is really, really good, and he's got a lot of abilities that look like they could project to the next level without him really needing to change too much. So obviously he'll get a bit more physically developed, and it'll allow him to be a little bit more effective at that physicality element of the game. But the defensive game, nothing wrong with it. He's working on it too. The offensive game is off the charts, as you can tell by him being flirting with 100 points this year potentially. And the physicality will come. So Zayne Parekh, he's just fun to watch. We had at WinSport over the Flames development camp in the summer, people were oohing and awing at him based on what he could do in a scrimmage. And that was him during the shortest summer he's ever going to have after a long year with the Memorial Cup and the draft combine and a long season and yada, yada, yada. So I think you can look at him and imagine him getting a good summer of training in this coming summer, and just kind of wondering what heights he could hit next year as a 19-year-old with his first actual summer of full training in a while. So Zayne Parekh, go out of your way to watch him. If you're thinking about the Calgary Flames and goaltenders, your first thought probably goes to Dustin Wolf. And that's a correct statement. You should probably think of Dustin Wolf first. Dustin Wolf was a 7th-round pick by the Flames, and he's turned into a damn fine NHL goalie very quickly. So it's good. You want that thing to happen. A goalie that's taken a little bit longer, but might not have the upside of Dustin Wolf, but is no doubt pretty exciting. Arsenii Sergeev, currently playing with Penn State. Sergeev was a 7th-round pick as well, a couple years after Dustin Wolf. Right now, he's playing his 3rd year of college hockey. He spent 2 years at UConn, and then he transferred to Penn State. At UConn, he was kind of in tandems both years. His first year, he was sort of splitting starts with the other goalie. His second year, he was the starter at first, and then he got hurt, and then he lost the net, and then he wasn't quite as good. The goaltending is kind of fickle like that. But the folks at Penn State felt that they needed to have a damn good goalie to build their program around, and they sought out Sergeev, and he was available in the transfer portal, so he moved over to the Nittany Lions this year, and he's been really, really good. He was injured in November. He missed a little bit of time. He came back in early January, and since January, he's been like lights out for Penn State. And as a result, Penn State went from being a program that people went going, they're pretty good. They've got a couple of good players, Aiden Fink, a couple other good players. They're not a bad little program, but they don't really have that element that's going to get them to the next level and sort of get them into that NCAA tournament group. Sergeev might be dragging them into that group. And he's a guy that, he's a safety blanket for them on nights when they're not playing their best. And so Sergeev, I don't know what his immediate future holds. Who knows what goaltending looks like at the pro level for the Flames in the next season or so, with Dan Vladar's contract coming up, and you don't know if they're going to move Cooley up or get someone, and who knows, do they want to bring in someone a bit more established to partner with Valtteri Ignatiev with the Wranglers? Anything can happen. It's hard to really tell. But so far, I mean, especially this year, folks going, oh man, imagine Sergeev if he got consistent starts and a consistent role, and the team basically gave him the reins and said, it's all yours, kids, do your thing. He's done that. And because Penn State really gave him the reins this year and said, it's all yours, kid, he's been really, really good. And, we'll see what happens. But at the very least, he is putting together a really, really, really good junior season. He has got another year left of NCAA eligibility, so we'll see what happens. Maybe he goes back, maybe he signs, maybe they do something else with him. But at the very least, he's someone who's really made a good case for himself this season. And, especially for a 7th rounder, these 7th rounders are gambles. You're rolling the dice, and you're hoping that you're rolling the dice in the right people and the right players. It looks like the Flames have potentially found another really good goalie late in the draft. So if you get a chance to watch Penn State, a lot of their games are available on streaming. Go out of your way, because Sergeev is a really fun goalie to watch, and he could end up being low-key important for the Flames in the coming years. Next up, let's go to the Wranglers. The Wranglers and the Flames have had sort of a mixed history of bringing European players, whether they draft them or sign this free agent. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes you get players like David Wolf or Daniel Preibel or Iichu Talola or any number of these guys that look like they'd be good fits on paper, but just sometimes it just doesn't click. Sometimes you go to a new environment and you just don't. The new environment, the big ice, the different play style, the systems, whatever, it just doesn't click. And so some of these guys have gone on to do other things in professional hockey elsewhere in the world. But if you're the Flames, you also look at, and you found David Riddick, who turned into a pretty damn good hockey player for the Flames organization. He's still in the NHL. You found Adam Klapka, who's flirting with NHL games. He's played up and down this year, and he's looked pretty decent in the NHL. And you've also found some players for the draft that turned out pretty well. Case in point, one of my favorite players to watch in the system, William Stromgren. William Stromgren was a 2nd-round pick a few years ago, and the big knock on him was, what is he offensively? He is a Swedish player. He was playing Swedish Pro and Swedish Junior. And the thing you need to know about the Swedish programs are you got to earn your spot. And typically you can look at ice time almost as an inverse relationship between your age and your ice time. Older players, more established players that are going to be sticking around in Swedish hockey for a while, they tend to be the guys that Swedish teams build around. Whereas if you're an NHL drafted player, or especially if you're a player who is just a teenager, you probably won't get a big role right away unless you're exceptional. And Stromgren, really good junior player, good offensive player in Swedish Junior, good two-way player, can produce, can defend, can do a lot of things, really versatile and big. But when he was playing in Swedish Pro, he just wasn't given a big role. He was asked to kill penalties and play bottom 6 minutes when he played. And so He decided to come to North America. He signed with the Flames a couple years ago, played last year with the Wranglers, and he was okay in the first half of the season up until Christmas last year, and then something clicked, kind of like it did for Adam Klapka in his first pro year in North America. Something just clicked at Christmas, and then boom, Stromgren became a really, really good and consistently good and reliable AHL player. And the good news is this year, he's basically continued that. You can make an argument that he's actually found another level to his game. And so Stromgren, he's big, he plays the wing, he's a left shot winger, and he's just somebody you can put anywhere in your top 9 and you're going to get reliable minutes out of. And so for him, he plays a really composed game. He doesn't take a lot of chances, but he has the ability to really use his size and his vision and his skill level to make good passes, to make good shots, to make good plays. And, I think the big thing for him is, he's still learning the ebbs and flows of North American pro hockey. He's still working on his consistency. He's not 100% there, but he's a guy that you can look at how he plays and go, I could see him playing in the NHL for a while based on how simple yet useful and reliable his game is. And so, if you get a chance to watch the Wranglers, watch for number 11 because he's a guy that, he doesn't do a lot of flashy things, but the things he does add up, and the things he does help his team win. And if you're building a hockey club, sometimes you need guys who have high skill level to drag your team around. The Flames have some of those guys in their system, but you also need guys that can sort of be the glue guys that can play with anyone and provide good minutes and really make your team a little bit better on nights where they might not have it. And Stromgren is one of those guys where if the Wranglers as a group might not have it, he has enough consistency most of the time that he can sort of nudge them over the line. And that's a pretty useful skill to have. So if you're watching the Wranglers, go watch Stromgren. Last but not least, Aydar Suniev, he's a sophomore at UMass. He's a left shot winger. He just turned 20. He's pretty good. He was a third-round pick of the Flames a couple years ago. The Flames drafted him with a pick they got in the Tyler Toffoli trade with New Jersey. Suniev, the big knock on him, he came through prep league hockey, and then he went to the BCHL for a couple years, and he had insanely good offensive numbers at the BCHL. Like, you look at his numbers and go, those numbers are just weird. Like, there's no way a guy should have numbers this good. And then he went to college, and all due respect to the BCHL, college is different. The style of game is different, and UMass coach Greg Carville remarked, I believe he did an interview with Post Media's Wes Gilbertson last season during Suniev's freshman year, and just mentioned, Suniev's never had to check before. Suniev played in a all-gas, no-breaks league in the BCHL where you didn't really need to have to defend or check very much. And so he could do the stuff with the puck, like that. He figured out the offensive side of the NCAA pretty quickly. But he needed to learn, what do you do when you don't have the puck? How do you be a consistent player away from the puck? How do you be a reliable player to be put out in tough minutes? And the good news is he figured it out, because right now he just came back from an injury, but he has been one of UMass's most consistent offensive players as a sophomore. He's out there in every high leverage situation. If you have a power play and you need a goal, if it's 5-on-5, you need a goal. Last 2 minutes of a game and you need a goal. Last 2 minutes of a game, you're holding on to a lead. Suniev is a guy they really trust now at UMass, and he's played a lot and he's played really well. And I think for him, the question is, can he continue to round out his game? He's a guy that I look at and go, could I see him go pro and play with the Wranglers next year? Sure. It might depend on the fit. It might depend on how many first-year guys the Wranglers have, because, they've shown the ability to really help guys learn and help guys fill out their game. We've seen a few of them in the NHL this year. Case in point, Matt Coronado learned a lot of the intricacies of the pro game coming from Harvard with the Wranglers, and now he's a really good NHLer. And so for most guys, the Wranglers are a way station you've got to go through, and I think it's a useful way station. And I think for him, it's just a question of timing. Would he get more reps and more learning in playing at UMass as a junior rather than playing as one of however many first-year pros of the Wranglers? I don't know. But you know what? It's, if you're the Flames and you're wondering, oh man, I got a good college kid here. How do we fit him in? Do we have the resources to get him to the level we want? You much rather have the challenge of, do we have too many guys in our system that we need to juggle, rather than, oh no, who are we going to fill out the minor league team with? we're screwed. The Wranglers have developed a program that has been pretty good and has been sending guys to the NHL pretty consistently and keeping them in the NHL. So, we'll see what happens. But if you get a chance to watch Suniev, he wears 16 with UMass. A lot of their games are available on streaming. TSN Plus carries NCAA games every now and then, and UMass is slated to play at least a couple more times this season. But Suniev, he's going to be a big piece of UMass as they try to make a push for an NCAA championship this year. I wouldn't bet against them. It's the college national tournament is tough to prognosticate because it's so easy to get knocked out. If you have a bad weekend, you're done. But Suniev has been one of the, when he's not his best, one of the more interesting and noteworthy college players, especially given his age. He's still only in his second year and he's barely 20, but he's a guy to really go out of your way to watch if you get a chance, because he could be a player that ends up being pretty important in the Wranglers and the Flames futures before too long. Well, those are the Flames prospects I think you really need to see, really need to watch between now and the end of the season. Did I miss anybody? Tell me how right or wrong I am. Get into the comments and let me know if you agree with my choices, if you think I glossed over one of your favorite prospects, or if you think I'm just really wrong. As always, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please click the like button. If you really like this video, please click subscribe and share with your friends. And if there's any topics you want me to discuss in a future video, jump in the comments and let me know. So, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.